James, there is a new shoe movie out. Don't we just love a shoe movie? This movie is called Air. And it's not about Air. It's about Nike Airs, right?
Yeah, that's it. You know a lot about this movie. You a shoe guy? You like shoes?
I mean, I wear them.
Yeah, of course.
I like shoes.
Do I like shoes? I bloody wear them every day.
I do. I take an interest in shoes. You know me. I think
Yeah,
I like to present myself relatively well.
Wearing Nikes right now?
No, I don't have a good history with Nikes. You haven't.
Speaking of good histories with Nike,
yes, thank you very much for interceding. So, Air.
Air is out. Ben Affleck is directing this film. It's a Ben Affleck.
Oh,
see what
sorry. Apologies for my massive pause while
Someone said to me when they saw the trailer for this, they said, "Oh, Ben Affleck and Matt Damon are making movies together again." And I said, "Yeah, did you not see The Last Duel?"
Yeah. No one saw it.
They were like, "Didn't hear about it." I'm like, "Well,
whoa, they didn't hear about it.
If
only Air had got the airtime that, no pun intended, that The Last Duel had.
Another reminder to go and watch The Last Duel if you haven't already.
Yes.
Underrated, I think, way more interesting than people give credit to.
And came out like after Bond. It was like one of the first films to like come out in the cinema after like things were returning sort of to normal again.
Mismarketed as well.
Mismarketed and famously
completely
bombed.
different film than what I thought it was going in.
Yeah.
Anyway, The Last Duel is there. This is Air. Air is the story all about Nike acquiring the athlete Michael Jordan.
Wow.
Okay,
so it's a corporate deal movie.
Yeah,
a licensing movie.
And it's like I'll get into it, but it's like rooting for big company that's now huge to do well. But anyway, it's actually quite a good. So Ben Affleck is in this film. He plays Philip K. Knight, who released the book called Shoe Dog, which is very popular, which is kind of about Nike in the 80s. And the film opens with what I thought was a really good splash of pop culture, bringing you into 1984. And it's a sequence which I imagine would have been a real faff to get all the licensing of all the clips. We've got trailers, we've got shoes, we've got hip hop, we've got sports, and it was a really good, like, you've got music there and fashion, and it was sort of like, a minute long, and it sort of flashed, and I was like, okay, great, 1984, I'm there, I'm with you. I wasn't there, but I know where I'm at with 1984. Cut to a character played by Matt Damon called Sonny Vaccaro, who is basically responsible for athlete recruitment for rookies. So he travels around all the high schools and colleges, and he watches the kids play, and he introduces himself, and he's like, hey, don't forget about Nike. And he introduces himself, and he tries to basically develop all these relationships in the chance that one of these kids ends up becoming an incredible athlete, and they are signed with Nike. And while he's got a really keen eye and he's very good at his job, he also, every time he travels, he does a layover in Vegas and he gambles quite compulsively, but relatively successfully. He's a little bit of a chancer, but he's got an eye for detail and he loves to sort of analyze the odds and he tries to see an opportunity where he gets it. He doesn't wear trainers. He wears very sad, black, grungy loafers with blue jeans. He's overweight. He doesn't play sport. He doesn't run. And Nike's big thing at this time was being the running shoe that you wear when you're not running. And one of the interesting things was that the market share for shoes at this time, I think, Converse was 40%, Adidas another 40%, and Nike was like 14. Doesn't make sense in mass, but
was
Nike
way
was
smaller than
compared to what it is now. It's probably one of the biggest sports brands, if not the biggest. Just an interesting position to be in 40 years ago. And he's got this. He literally spends hours going through all of these cassette tapes, and he rewatches the games of these rookies. And they're in this meeting, and Jason Bateman's in it, and they're looking at. They go, okay, we got 4 options. The 4 top are this guy, Michael Jordan, another guy. Which one do we go for? And the people in the meeting are just like, let's go for that guy. Like, what? And Matt Damon's like, why? Why are you going for that guy? And so he probably sits down, he goes through all the tapes, and he sees this one shot that Michael Jordan takes, and he looks at the way in which he received the ball and how he moved, and he gets consumed with this idea that Michael Jordan is going to be the biggest athlete in the world. And he says, we only have 250 grand to spread across 3 athletes. What if we bet all of that 250 grand on one athlete, and we offered it to Michael Jordan? And he has to sort of lobby Philip K. Knight, played by Ben Affleck, to do this, who already is like over budget, and the board is never going to buy it. And what's interesting about this film is Michael Jordan is in this film, but he's not in this film. So his parents are very prominent, and it's with played by Viola Davis plays his mum, who's brilliant in it, and they're sort of negotiating with them to get the deal for Michael Jordan. Michael Jordan is in it in archive footage, and he's in it in marketing material, but he is not
There's
seen.
a character
There is
of Michael Jordan.
He is seen over the back of the shoulder.
Right.
There's a moment where he's in a room and he's looking in the corner, which I found really strange. But it's not about convincing Michael Jordan. It's about convincing the parents and trying to convince them why Adidas isn't a good choice, why Puma isn't a good choice. And I think here's a problem with it. You've got a story about whether or not Michael Jordan is going to sign with Nike and create the Air Jordan shoe. I know that happens.
Yes.
It's a foregone conclusion that happens. So the film tries to create a lot of suspense over whether or not it happens, which to me made the film a little bit pointless. Like The Social Network isn't interesting because it builds suspense over whether or not Facebook became the biggest social media platform of its time. I knew that going in. The suspense comes from the character drama and the people within it that were a part of it. That's where I think the problem is with the film. There's some really interesting elements to it when it comes to the nature of that deal, and the clauses within that changed the entire infrastructure for the way that athletes get paid in their merchandising deals. And as we know, Michael Jordan made the vast amounts of his money from that deal with Nike, and loads of other athletes, because of that, were able to make large amounts of money. Again, like big whoop to Nike, the big corporation, for making the big deal. But that element of it to me meant that I was only so interested in like whether or not, did we get it? Did we get it? Yeah, you did.
Because it's not like...
You did get it.
It's not one person's hero's journey. It's a company trying to succeed.
Yeah,
right?
and they did get it, and we know that's true. Unless you just were spawned 2 years ago and you'd never watched anything related, even as a Brit, like even if you like never watched anything else, we know Michael Jordan goes on to become one of the greatest athletes of all time, if not the. So that's my main problem with it. The decision to not put Michael Jordan in it, I found distracting because he's such an important part of this. It's Air Jordan, and there's moments where he's noticeably absent from a lot of the ways in which, like, Matt Damon speaks to him on the phone at once, and he's noticeably absent from the meetings. And the moment he is there, he's like in the back of the room, like not looking. And I'm like,
wow,
that's distracting. That's Michael Jordan, and you're refusing to show his face. I've read up on it, and it's because it was an artistic decision to not try to take the image of Michael Jordan, let's say Michael Jackson, of Michael Jordan away from the marketing and the archive footage and put it into another actor's face.
Right.
I think it's just a little bit too hard, and there's something lost from it. That's the only thing. It's a real great, feel-good film with really great performances. You've got Matt Damon, Jason Bateman's in it, and God, what's the one from Rush Hour called again?
Chris Tucker.
Chris Tucker's also
Chris Tucker's
brilliant.
in it.
Yeah, he's fantastic.
Wow.
He's really good.
Where's he
And
been?
Ben Affleck's great in it. I like Ben Affleck and Matt Damon together. I think the dialogue's really sharp. It's engaging. It's feel good. You've got loads of 80s hair and flair.
Love it.
Just like I was only so interested in it, but I had a fun time.
A couple of things. What I'm interested to know is that, so my whole knowledge of this thing was informed by that really fantastic series, The Last Dance.
Yeah,
on Netflix,
fantastic.
Right?
Go
All
and
about
watch it,
the
yeah.
Chicago Bulls, and I thoroughly recommend that to people because, like me, I knew nothing about basketball. I'm a complete
perfect.
novice, and I learned so much, and it's such a great story. And there is one whole episode about Air Jordans and Nike and Michael Jordan's relationship to that was so interesting and so informative and entertaining. That whole documentary is done. So when I see the trailer for Air and hear you talk about it, I'm like, is that 2-hour film, let's say, is it 2 hours roughly?
No, 90.
Okay, is that 90-minute film going to be as good as that hour-long episode documentary I saw?
The documentary probably has more value to you as a storytelling.
Right, and Michael Jordan is in the documentary.
Jordan's in it, both in archive
and now.
as a retrospective interview.
So that's the value there. And another thing I was going to say is that it's interesting you mentioned The Social Network because it's like, that is 13 years ago now.
Yeah.
And, we're still having films. We
it.
still have that kind of subgenre of films. We've just had Tetris as well,
Yes.
about licensing deals for a very, you take a very famous product that we all know.
Yeah.
The Founder is another example as well.
Yes,
And you look at the sort of background corporate dealings that go into it. Although you and I quite like The Founder. I think,
It's
actually.
good.
But it's interesting that even 13 years later, that hasn't...
People are still chasing the dragon as the
Social Network hasn't been superseded.
No.
Like, it is still the OG one of, if you want to see a film about a famous product, but the story behind it, that's more interesting than you think it is.
Yeah.
That's why.
It's a really good story. And like all the blurbs at the end.
Yeah.
Which I don't think I'll spoil because there's loads of stuff like you wouldn't know. And it's really nice to see like, oh wow, that's so interesting. It's just like the focus wasn't on the right bit. But I had a really nice time watching it. I saw it in cinema.
Is it going on to like Apple TV? Like
I think it's a Prime.
Right.
It's one of the
for
Prime
me,
ones.
I hate to say this, but like it does look like a kind of
Straight to Prime.
a straight to streaming one, like a premium streaming
film that has Ben Affleck and Matt Damon in it. So they were like, let's try and put it out and see if we can get people to buy a ticket. I think I sound more negative on it than I am. It's good.
No, I think it's just just fine.
Yeah, it's fine.
It's fine. Hey, if it's only 90 minutes, that sounds like it gets away with it. But if I think if it sounds like if it was longer than 2 hours, it'd be a real stretch.
Oh, it's hour 52. I take it all back.
Well, maybe
Didn't feel long.
So, obviously, as a shoe film, though, the question is, does it have soul?
Technically, there's a moment where they design the shoe. There's the whole idea that it's not about the shoe, it's about who wears it, right? And the shoe, gorgeous shoe, iconic shoe. Maybe that's because we've had like years of looking at the shoe and we think it's good. But there's one time he's like, look, it doesn't matter. We're gonna mold the whole sole around your foot anyway. So yes, it does have good soul.
There we go. If you've seen Air and agree or disagree with James's thoughts, let us know at hello@pulpkitchenpodcast.com.
Air your thoughts.
Oh, very good.
Yeah.
And let us know if it has soul.
For the next Ben Affleck.
Oh, whenever that day mun come, I can't stop. Jesus.
And that's where it ended.